Queen Lami sought out the counsel of the only ally she believed could aid her in her quest for dominance. The air in the chamber was thick with the scent of burning incense, curling tendrils of smoke rising toward the intricately carved ceiling. The flickering torchlight cast elongated shadows against the stone walls, making the space feel more ominous. Obie, in all you do, never get lost in the past. And with those words of caution, Azua vanished into thin air as the cries of the newborn baby pierced the silence of the forest. The humid night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and distant rain, and the rustling of unseen creatures provided an eerie backdrop to the unfolding events. A lone giant prowling the forest was momentarily startled, his massive form poised in confusion, head tilting as he strained to locate the source of the sound amidst the dense foliage. His thick fingers, rough like the bark of an ancient tree, clenched reflexively as he narrowed his glowing amber eyes. With a furrowed brow, he scanned the forest, his senses heightened by the unfamiliar sound that echoed through the wilderness. With a rumble that shook the very earth, he let out a thunderous bellow which reverberated through the forest, flattening his skin of the presence of intruders. In an instant, the forest came alive with the thundering footsteps of the giants as they mobilized to investigate the disturbance, their massive frames crashing through the underbrush like titans unleashed. The air was thick with the scent of crushed leaves and upturned soil as the ground trembled beneath their advance. Meanwhile, the female warriors of Aim, caught off guard by the unexpected turn of events, fled for their lives in a frantic bid for survival, their hearts pounding with fear as they dashed through the dense foliage, the moonlight barely guiding their desperate path. But their efforts were in vain, for the giants were relentless in their pursuit, their towering forms casting a menacing shadow over the helpless warriors. With swift and merciless efficiency, the giants descended upon them, their massive hands snatching up the warriors and throwing them into sacks as easily as a child plucking flowers from the garden. The suffocating darkness of the sacks muffled their cries, but the tremors of their captors' every footstep reminded them of their grim fate. Amidst the chaos and confusion, only a handful of warriors managed to evade capture. Ease, the lead warrior, and 5 others. Their survival instincts guided them through the tangled undergrowth as the cries of the newborn persisted, echoing through the forest like a haunting melody. The giants found themselves baffled by the source of the sound. With each passing moment, their frustration grew, their colossal forms towering over the landscape as they searched in vain for the elusive intruder. But amidst the chaos and confusion, the leader of the giants, a formidable figure with eyes like smoldering embers, paused to listen with more careful attention. His breaths came in heavy, deliberate waves, misting in the cool night air. As the plaintive wails of the infant reached his ears, he felt a curious stirring deep within his chest, a spark of curiosity that urged him to investigate further. With cautious steps, the giant approached the mouth of the cave, his massive frame casting a shadow over the trembling figure of Zara, who cowered in fear at his looming presence. The earthy scent of moss and damp stone surrounded her, mixing with the metallic tang of fear. He honed in on the source of the sound, his massive form bending low to peer into the darkness of the cave. There, huddled in the shadows with hands trembling in fear, sat Zara, her eyes wide with terror as she found herself face to face with a towering behemoth. Before she could utter a word, the giant's massive hand closed around her leg, dragging her out of the cave and casting her into the sack with the other captured warriors. The rough fabric scraped against her skin as the air was knocked from her lungs. But even as Zara joined the chorus of despair, echoing through the forest, the baby's plaintive wails continued unabated, drawing the giant's attention once more. With a mixture of confusion and intrigue, he leaned closer, his eyes narrowing in scrutiny until he beheld the tiny human nestled amidst the darkness of the cave. In a moment of disbelief, the giant reached down with trembling hands to scoop up the infant, cradling it gently in his massive palms as if afraid to tamper with its delicate body. His heart pounded like a war drum, his mind reeling at the sight before him. And as he held the child aloft for his companions to see, a chorus of gasps and murmurs rose up from the giants, their eyes wide with wonder and disbelief. For in all their long years on earth, they had never beheld such a sight, a human child, so small and fragile, yet possessed of a beauty that transcended the bounds of their understanding. Their hushed voices carried on the wind, mixing with the rustling leaves and distant howls of the night creatures. You may want to ask, if the giants have never seen a baby, how then did they come into existence? Stay tuned to see how the story unfolds, not forgetting to subscribe, like, and share. As Ease and the other 5 warriors stormed into the palace, their faces etched with defeat, Queen Lamie became furious as she sensed the futility in their mission. Her fingernails dug into the armrest of her throne, leaving deep grooves in the polished wood. With a venomous glare, she dismissed them, her mind consumed by thoughts of the threats that loomed. With the sense of foreboding weighing heavy upon her, she retreated to the sanctum of her chamber, where her twisted mirror awaited, its dark surface shimmering with sinister energy. The room pulsed with an unnatural chill, the flickering candlelight doing little to ward off the encroaching shadows. As Queen Lamie stood before her mirror, her fury burned like wildfire in her veins. She uttered the incantation that would reveal the truth she sought. Mirror, mirror, show me if any mortal is trying to take over my supremacy, she commanded, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. And as the mirror shimmered and shifted, Queen Lamie's eyes widened in shock and disbelief at the sight that greeted her. A baby boy cradled in the palm of a giant, a sight that filled her with a rage unlike anything she had ever known. With a scream that shook the very foundations of the kingdom, Queen Lamie unleashed her fury upon the unsuspecting palace, her wrath echoing through the halls like the wail of a banshee. The very air seemed to tremble with her wrath, the walls quivering under the weight of her unleashed power. For in the face of this new threat to her reign, she knew that she could not afford to show weakness or hesitation, not if she wished to maintain her iron grip on power. In a desperate bid to eliminate the threats to her kingdom, Queen Lamie sought out the counsel of the only ally she believed could aid her in her quest for dominance, Azua, a sorceress of dark and ancient powers, whose knowledge of the arcane arts surpassed even her own. As she stood before the sorceress, her eyes blazed with a hunger for power. She demanded answers that would allow her to vanquish her enemies and secure her grip on the kingdom. With a voice like silk and steel, Azua spoke of a solution that bordered on the unthinkable, a journey to the past, to the very origins of the giants themselves. One that sent shivers down Queen Lamie's spine. To eliminate the threat to your kingdom, Obie intoned, his voice laced with an eerie sense of certainty. You must go back in time to find the woman who birthed the first giant and erase her existence from the annals of history. By wiping out the existence of this woman, you will undo the very fabric of time itself, ensuring that all giants become small and powerless before your might. Only then will you be able to get rid of that infant child. At first, Queen Lamie recoiled at the notion of such a heinous act, the weight of its implications pressing down upon her like an iron yoke. The flickering torches in the chamber cast long shadows upon the walls, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. But as Azwa spoke of the dangers that awaited her kingdom should she fail to act, the queen's resolve hardened like steel, her determination to protect her reign outweighing any moral qualms that threatened to sway her away from her cause. And so, with a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, Queen Lamie made the fateful decision to embark on a journey through time, to undo the events that had led to the birth of the giants and reshape the course of history itself. The air around her crackled with an almost tangible energy, as if the very universe braced itself for the upheaval she was about to unleash. For she knew that only by altering the past could she hope to secure the future of her kingdom and preserve her reign of terror for generations to come. What people do for power. Sit tight, as the story is about to take a different turn, not forgetting to subscribe, like, and share, as Queen Lamie and Azwa ventured deeper into the ominous forest. Their footsteps echoed like whispers in the shadows, swallowed by the dense, suffocating mist that coiled around their ankles. The thick scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled the air, a stark reminder of the passage of time. They stumbled upon a wide clearing, bathed in an eerie glow that seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the distant howls of unseen creatures. In this spot, amidst the tangled roots and ancient trees, the veil between the past and the present shimmered like a mirage in the fading light. Azua, the sorceress, blew some powder into the air, whispering incantations and summoning forth the magic that would reveal the secret portal, the gateway to a realm untouched by the passage of time. The wind picked up, swirling the powder in intricate patterns, and as the white dust danced in the air, the clearing transformed before their eyes, revealing an eerie cycle of swirling energy that pulsed with power, both ancient and primal. The very ground beneath them seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly hum, the fabric of reality bending to accommodate the spell's potency. Fear gripped Queen Lamie's heart as she beheld the ominous sight before her, the weight of her doubts and insecurities pressing down upon her like a crushing wave. For in that moment, the enormity of her quest lay heavy upon her shoulders, threatening to crush her beneath its weight. The flickering light of the portal cast ghostly reflections upon her face, illuminating the storm of emotions warring within her soul. But even as darkness threatened to consume her, the hunger for power burned within Queen Lamie like a raging inferno, driving her forward with a determination born of desperation and ambition. With a solemn expression, Azwa pressed a necklace into the queen's trembling hand, its surface adorned with intricate runes and symbols of power, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. "Here lies the entrance to the past," Azwa intoned, her voice a whisper in the wind that sent shivers down Lamie's spine. "When you have achieved your mission, make the incantations upon this necklace, and I will receive the signal and grant you access back into the present. Heed my warning, Queen Lamie, for the past is a treacherous realm, filled with dangers and temptations that can ensnare even the strongest of souls. In all you do, never get lost in the past, for to do so will be to risk losing yourself forever." And with those words of caution lingering in the air, Azua vanished into thin air, leaving Queen Lami alone in the swirling maelstrom of time. For what seemed like an eternity, the queen stood at the precipice of the past, her heart torn between the allure of power and the fear of the unknown. The rustling of unseen creatures beyond the clearing made her grip tighten around the necklace. But as the echoes of Azua's warning faded into the air, Queen Lami steeled herself for the journey ahead, her resolve as unyielding as the mountains themselves. With a final trembling breath, she closed her eyes and stepped forth into the swirling abyss, her fate now sealed within the currents of time. And as she vanished into the depths of the past, the forest fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of impending change. In the land of the giants, where the captured women toiled as slaves and were eventually eaten as sustenance for their captors, Zara found a grim sort of solace in the knowledge that her baby was safe in the care of a nanny. Though her fate was sealed, she took comfort in the fleeting moments she stole away to nurse her child, a bittersweet reminder of the love she held in her heart. The dim candlelight flickered upon the rough stone walls of her confinement, casting long shadows that seemed to dance in cruel mockery of her plight. Day by day, Zara watched as her son grew, his laughter ringing out amidst the shadows of the giant's domain. His tiny hands reached for her, his bright eyes filled with the innocence of one untainted by the horrors of their world. And though she knew that her time was limited, she cherished every precious moment she shared with him, determined to instill within him a spirit of resilience and strength, a will to survive against all odds. But even as Zara embraced her role as a mother, the specter of her impending doom loomed ever closer, a constant reminder of the fragility of life in a world ruled by brutality and hunger. She could feel the eyes of her captors upon her, their grotesque smiles betraying the fate that awaited her. Zara was eventually eaten by the giants, yet her spirit lived on in the heart of her son, whom she named Obie, meaning new strength. Meanwhile, back in Aim, the absence of Queen Lami cast a shadow of uncertainty over the kingdom. The grand halls of the palace stood eerily quiet, their once vibrant atmosphere dulled by the weight of unanswered questions. As Azua's magic held the kingdom in a tenuous grip, though 2 years had passed since the queen embarked upon her quest, the people of Aim could not shake off the nagging sense of unease that gnawed at their souls. Rumors swirled through the streets like whispers in the wind, each one more fantastical than the last. Some said they sighted the queen in a distant land. Others murmured of a plot to overthrow her rule. And the rest whispered of her demise at the hands of dark forces beyond their comprehension. But amidst the chaos and confusion, one question still remained unanswered. Was Queen Lami still alive? Power, when pursued without restraint, can lead to devastating consequences, altering the very fabric of existence. Queen Lami's journey serves as a stark reminder that the thirst for control and dominance often comes at an unimaginable cost. History warns us that those who seek to reshape the past for their own gain may end up losing themselves in the process. Thank you for watching my channel. Your support means everything. Don't forget to like, share, and explore more thrilling stories waiting for you in the next video. Lamie was a shy 14-year-old who struggled a lot with her weight, tipping the scales at 265 lbs. At Ketu High School, she was the biggest student, often the target of very mean jokes from classmates and other students, making her feel isolated and hurt. Despite this, her school uniform was always neatly pressed, and she carried herself with quiet dignity, though she hated how she was treated at school. There was one good thing about school Dami, the most handsome and popular boy in school. Lamie had a huge crush on him, but she knew Dami did not even know she existed. One day during lunch, Dami walked up to her and invited her to a party at his house. Lamie looked around, thinking Dami was talking to someone else around her, but she was alone. She was very shocked to know that he knew her. "This is my chance to make him notice me," she said, her cheeks flushing with excitement. Ketu High was a school for children from prestigious and very affluent families, so Lamie was determined to make a good impression. This was the first time she had been invited to anything in her 4 years in Ketu High School. She rented a beautiful dress, borrowed a luxury car, and even borrowed money from her friends to buy an expensive gift for Dami. She was very happy and hopeful. "This is the beginning of me and Dami," she thought to herself, staring at her reflection in the mirror. When the day of the party arrived, Lamie was nervous but excited. She arrived in her rented dress and borrowed car. Dami was standing outside with his friends, so she walked up to him and gave him the expensive gift. But just when she thought everything was going well, something terrible happened. Dami and his friends started laughing hysterically. Lamie's stomach twisted. Why were they laughing? Dami then called everyone's attention, and Lamie's heart raced. She thought he was going to say something nice about her, but instead he revealed that it was all a bet to see if he could get the ugliest girl in school to fall for him. The room erupted in laughter. Lamie's face turned grey, her heart shattered. It was too much. She turned around and ran out of the party, crying. The humiliation didn't end there. One of Dami's friends was videoing the whole prank, and they put it on social media. Everyone online mocked Lamie, calling her mean names like desperado and out of your league. Her heart ached with shame and betrayal, and anger began to grow inside her. She cried for days and then decided to take revenge. "I will make them regret this," she thought, clutching her pillow tightly. For 2 weeks, Lamie didn't leave her room. She was consumed by thoughts of revenge. She refused to talk to anyone, but she couldn't hide forever. When she finally went back to school, as soon as she walked into the classroom, laughter erupted again. Dami's mocking voice filled the room, and everyone laughed even harder. Then, from nowhere, Biola, a quiet boy that sat at the back of the class, stepped in. He grabbed one of Dami's friends, who was taunting Lamie, and pushed him away. "Leave her alone," he said firmly, his voice trembling with courage. The class went silent. He had taken a stand, something no one else dared to do. Dami snapped back immediately. "Why don't you worry about your own life, Biola? Everyone knows your mom is just a poor housemaid at my house. Everyone knows your mom is just a poor housemaid at my house. She cleans my room and washes my dirty clothes." The class laughed, but Biola's bravery had left a mark on Lamie. After school, she went up to Biola. "Thank you," she said softly, "and I'm sorry for what Dami said." Biola smiled a bit, brushing it off, but Lamie could see the pain in his eyes. Despite his own personal struggles, he had stood up for her. As they walked, a luxury car pulled up. Dami's driver was calling for Biola. "Wait, you live with Dami?" Lamie asked, confused. Biola nodded, explaining that although they lived in the same house, Dami refused to let him ride in the same car, forcing him to walk home every day. Shocked, Lamie felt a deep sense of anger. Damie's cruelty went far beyond her. As she was talking to Biola, Lamie's own driver arrived. She turned to Biola and offered him a ride home. He was surprised that Lamie was so kind, so he got into Lamie's car and they drove off. When they reached Damie's grand house, Lamie said bye to Biola as he got out. Biola waved goodbye. He thought about Lamie's kindness to him, even though she had had a bad day in the class. But when Biola walked inside, the warmth from Lamie's kindness quickly faded. The first thing he saw was his mom on her knees, scrubbing the floor of Damie's house. The room was flooded with dirty water. His mother's eyes were red and swollen from crying. Mom, Biola rushed over, concern filling his voice. What happened? Who did this? His mother looked up, sadness written all over her face as fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away, but they only kept coming. It was Lami. His mother whispered, her voice shaky. He got home a little while ago and just started pouring water everywhere in the living room. I told him to stop, but he started calling me names and saying very bad things about us. Biola felt a surge of anger fill his chest. He knew why Damie had done this. He was punishing them because of what happened at school. Biola's fists clenched as he stared at the dirty water on the floor. He couldn't believe how cruel Damie was capable of being. I'm going to talk to him, Biola said, standing up with determination. He can't keep treating you like this. Just then, a mocking laugh came from the top of the stairs. Biola looked up to see Damie standing there, a cold smile on his face, arms crossed as if he were the owner of the house, looking down on his servants. Next time, remember who you're dealing with, Damie yelled. Then, without warning, he grabbed another bucket full of water and threw it down the stairs. The water splashed everywhere, making the mess worse, some even soaking Biola's clothes and shoes. Biola was so angry he wanted to run upstairs and give Damie a beating of his life for all the hurt and humiliation he had caused. But just as he was about to step forward, his mother reached out, holding him back. Please, Biola, don't, her mother pleaded. It's not worth it. We need this job, please. Biola stopped. His anger became helplessness. Tears began to fill his eyes as he looked down at his poor mother, kneeling on the floor, tired and broken from the endless work and humiliation. Biola couldn't hold it in anymore. The tears spilled over, his whole body trembling with sobs. His mother got up from the floor, wrapping her arms around him to comfort him. It's okay, my dear, she whispered as she cried too. We will get through this, and this will be our testimony. But as Biola wept in her mother's arms, he made a silent promise to himself. He wouldn't let Damie keep treating them this way forever. One day, things would change. One day, they'd be free of Damie's cruelty. As Biola and his mother finished cleaning up the disaster, Damie was upstairs already plotting his next way to torment them. Damie tiptoed into the kitchen, looking around to make sure Biola's mom wasn't nearby. He saw Biola's house key laying on the kitchen table. He took it and put it inside his pocket, then went back to his room. Later that night, Biola and his mom were so tired from all the cleaning they were leaving Damie's home and going back to their house to rest for the night. But when they reached their house, they searched for their house key everywhere, but could not find it. Oh no, where's the key? Oh no, where's the key? Biola's mom whispered, her voice filled with worry. Viola's eyes widened in panic. Maybe we left it at Damie's house, she said, feeling her heart sink. I'll go back and get it. Just wait here, Mom. He quickly got into the bus and went back to Damie's house. It was very late at night, and the streets were eerily quiet when he reached the front door. The cold wind howled, carrying dried leaves across the empty road. He raised his hand to knock but froze when he heard voices coming from inside. It was Damie's parents, Mr. Damie and Mrs. Adana, having a deep conversation. Viola hid behind the flower bush by the door so he could eavesdrop without being seen. He's completely out of control. Mrs. Adana's voice was sharp with anger. Do you know, he borrowed money without even telling us, and he spent all that money on a party. Viola's heart pounded as he listened. Mr. Damie let out a weary sigh. None of our children have ever caused us this much trouble. Sometimes I regret bringing him into our home after his real mother died. Viola's eyes widened in shock. What did he just say? He thought, struggling to process the revelation. Damie isn't their real son? Mr. Damie continued, his voice filled with frustration. We've done everything for him. We treat him like the rest of our children, but he gives us so much trouble. Viola couldn't believe what he was hearing. Not only was Damie not their biological child, but he had been causing a lot of trouble in their family just like he had for Viola and his mom. He felt some sympathy for Damie, but immediately remembered how badly Damie treated his mom. When Damie's parents stopped talking, Viola snuck out of the flower bush and knocked on the door. When Mrs. Adana opened it, Viola gave her a polite smile, pretending he hadn't overheard a word. Good evening, madam, Viola said. I think my mom left her keys here by mistake. Mrs. Adana looked exhausted but nodded. Oh, the key. Let me help you look. They searched around the living room and kitchen, but there was no key. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of a wall clock filled the silence as they searched. Viola knew deep down that Damie must have taken it, but he kept quiet, deciding it wasn't the right time to confront him. After leaving the house without the key, Viola thought about everything he now knew about Damie. As the taxi took him back home, he kept replaying Mr. Damie's words. Damie isn't their real son. The boy who had brought so much pain and chaos wasn't even their biological child. When Viola finally made it home, he found his mom waiting outside, shivering in the cold night air. The dim streetlight above them flickered, casting shadows on the ground. Did you find the key? Her mom asked, her voice filled with hope. Viola shook his head sadly. No, Mom, it wasn't there. With a disappointed sigh, her mom looked around. It was late, and they had nowhere else to go, so they sat down on the steps outside their door. The night became colder, and soon heavy rain began to pour, soaking them as they huddled together, shivering and hugging themselves for warmth. Viola's clothes were drenched, and he could feel his mom shaking beside him. Tears welled up in his eyes. He wished he could make things better, but all they could do was sit there, cold and wet, through the long rainy night. Meanwhile, back at school, Damie's behavior was getting out of control. Every day he got meaner, bullying his classmates and disrespecting the teachers. No one dared stand up to his mean actions, and he seemed to enjoy the power he held over others. His laughter echoed through the hallway each time he abused someone and was mean to them. One weekend, Lami went to visit her cousin, Kimi, who was a popular actress. Kimi's living room was adorned with framed movie posters and awards. As they were talking, a notification popped up on Kimi's phone. Lami looked at it and her eyes widened in shock. Damie had sent a DM to Kimi, begging her to respond to his messages, the same boy who had made her life miserable at school. Kimi noticed Lami's expression and laughed. "Do you know him?" "Yeah," Lami replied, still surprised. "He is in my class." Kimi raised an eyebrow, smiling. "Looks like he's a big fan," she said, showing Lami the long list of messages Damie had sent her. Lami couldn't believe it. Damie, with all his pride, had been messaging Kimi non-stop, hoping for a response. An idea popped into Lami's head. "Kimi, can I reply to him?" she asked, a mischievous grin forming on her face. Kimi gave her the phone. "Go ahead. Let's see what happens." Lami quickly typed a message, pretending to be Kimi, and sent Damie a different number, saying, "Message me here and we'll chat." Within minutes, Damie's messages flooded in, thinking he was talking to Kimi, the beautiful young actress. He was so polite and sweet, nothing like the arrogant boy from school. Lami read the messages and laughed so hard. He had no idea it was Lami on the other side. That night, as she lay in bed, Lami smiled. This was her chance to finally teach Damie a lesson. She had been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time. The next day at school, Damie strutted down the hallways, acting like he owned the place. Meanwhile, Lami, still posing as Kimi, kept chatting with him. They started talking about the upcoming prom, and Damie really wanted to show off his new girlfriend to the whole school. Excited, Damie messaged Kimi. "There's a prom at my school soon. It's going to be a lot of fun." He imagined himself walking in with the popular singer and becoming the talk of the school for a very long time. Lami replied, "Would you like me to go with you?" Damie's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly typed back, "Yes, I'd love that." He was already picturing everyone's stunned faces when he would arrive with Kimi at school. Excitement for the prom was buzzing. Couples were planning their outfits and practicing dance moves, while students without dates searched frantically. But Lami, with her fat body and awkward self, struggled to find a partner. No boy wanted to be seen with her. She was mocked and laughed at. The same went for Biola, the boy who had once stood up for Lami. No one wanted to go with him because he was poor and the son of a maid. Biola, noticing that only he and Lami were left out, decided to ask Lamie to be his date for the prom. After school, he approached her, nervous but hopeful. "Lami, would you like to go to the prom with me?" he asked shyly. Surprised and touched, Lami gave him a warm smile. "Yes, Biola, I'd love to." Biola was relieved and very happy. He did not want to be the only one dancing alone at the prom. The night sky above the school glittered with stars, as if nature itself were excited for the big event. But things weren't so easy for Damie now. He had 2 dates, his girlfriend and Kimi. Not wanting to miss the chance to show off, he broke up with his girlfriend a few days before the prom. "You're just not on my level anymore," he said coldly, his eyes scanning his phone as if she weren't even worth his attention. His girlfriend was devastated. She had planned everything for them to have a perfect night, even rehearsing their dance moves in front of her mirror. But Damie didn't care. He was too focused on his dream of arriving with the famous and most beautiful actress. Her tears fell silently, and she ripped apart the corsage she had bought for him. As prom night approached, Lamie and Viola grew closer. They spent a lot of time together. When she dropped him off at Damie's house after school every day, she noticed how self-conscious Lamie felt and decided to help her gain confidence. They started working out together in the cool evenings, with Viola putting her on a special diet and cheering her on through every step. After school, they would run together at a small park near their neighborhood. The park was quiet, with birds chirping and the smell of fresh grass filling the air, creating the perfect environment for their bonding. Lamie was very grateful for the support she received from Viola. She began to feel more confident than she ever had, grateful to have a friend like Viola. She had not been lucky to have any loyal, helpful friend before. People were used to staring at her and laughing at her everywhere she went. But now, every day, she felt stronger, both physically and emotionally. Viola and Lamie had agreed to go to prom, pretending to be each other's dates. At first, it was just an arrangement, a casual plan, so that the other students wouldn't laugh at them when they arrived alone. But as the weeks passed and they spent more time working out together, something unexpected happened. Lamie began to care deeply for Viola. Viola's encouragement made her smile and feel good about herself. Her weight was also dropping, and she really felt motivated to work out more and eat healthier. By the time prom was around the corner, Lamie was looking and feeling like a new person. Her skin glowed, and there was a new bounce in her step. Viola and everyone in school noticed the transformation. They were surprised. Viola was so proud of Lamie, his smile lighting up each time he saw her. Behind the scenes, Damie was looking for money to fund his grand entrance. He did not want to ask his parents, as he was already causing them a lot of trouble. One afternoon, the golden light streaming through the window of his mom's room fell on a jewelry box. He sneaked into the room and took his mother's most expensive jewelry and his dad's luxurious watch, his heart racing as he stuffed them into his bag. The tick of the nearby clock felt deafening in the quiet room. He sold 2 of the items, keeping one for himself. With the money, he rented a luxury car and booked a hall for the after party. He knew that all eyes would be on him, the prom king of the night, so he wanted to party more after the prom. As the prom day approached, chaos erupted in Damie's house. His parents discovered that their jewelry was missing and searched the entire house. The air in the living room was tense, with drawers and cabinets left open as his parents frantically looked around. Damie got scared and nervous and decided to take the suspicion away from himself. He accused Viola's mom, who often helped around their home. "Mom, I saw Viola's mom sneaking into your room earlier," Damie whispered, pretending to be shocked. His mom was shocked to hear that, and she confronted Viola's mom. As Viola's mom began to plead her innocence, Damie suggested that they should search Viola's mother's bag. Unluckily, Damie had planted his dad's watch in the poor woman's bag earlier that day. Viola's mom was in absolute shock to see the watch there. "Mrs. Adana, please, you have to believe me. I did not take it," she cried. "I have worked here for years, and I have never stolen anything. Why would I start now?" "Shut up, you thief!" Damie yelled, his voice echoing off the high ceilings. No one believed the woman, and soon the police arrived, their flashing lights illuminating the driveway as neighbors peeked out of their windows. Biola's mom was taken away. Biola tried to protect his mom. He begged Mrs. Adana, saying his mother did not steal the watch, but no one